Hello, I'm Amy, and I facilitate the Ableton User Group here in Central Victoria, where I'm sitting right now. And each month we meet up a group of like minded people who are into making electronic music in all its forms, and particularly with an avid interest in Ableton Live. We get together and we have a special guest each month. And back in June, the incredible speaker that we had was David Haberfeld, who goes under the moniker Honey Smack. He is an absolute master of acid techno in Australia, and the way that he does acid techno is 100% hardware. It's quite incredible to watch. So it was wonderful to be taken into his studio for this session where he showed us through some of his equipment and the setup that he uses, and also the methodology behind the way that he approaches making music, which can go against a lot of the things that you hear and read. And it was really, really refreshing to hear from him in his 100% hardware, 100% making music in real time, no samples, well, sort of, but mostly no samples. You'll have to watch it to get his explanation on that. It's fantastic. And a little bit on David, because he has done a lot. He's had co-writing credits with Burt Bacharach, the Burt Bacharach, who's Grammy and Academy awarded. He's been nominated for ARIAs here in Australia for Best Dance Music Release for the Honey Smack album Walk on Acid. He's directed independent record labels. He's performed at huge festivals all around the world. And he has most recently released an album post-acid on Carl Cox's label, which is wonderful, and you should definitely check that out and throw some money at it, because we want him to keep doing what he's doing. And academically, he's also a lecturer. He's worked across most of the universities in Australia and guest lectured at international things as well. And on the industry side of things, he's been quite prolific as well. He was the editor of Beat magazine for a long time. He's been a radio producer and presenter at Kiss FM back in the 90s, and he has been the music technology demonstrator for a lot of brands that we know and love: Roland, Electron, Moog, Korg, Yamaha, Akai, Buchla, you name it. He's all over it. It was a really exciting session. So I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on it. So do drop a line in the community after you've watched it. And if you have any questions for David, I'll be sure to pass them on. Enjoy.
So as you can tell by Amy's introduction of the person sitting in front of you, I've been doing this for quite some time, and it's not a hobby. It's where I find myself professionally, personally, and academically as well. So I have no computer in front of you, so I know this is the Ableton group, and I've been using Ableton, I think, since I think I was a beta tester, but they didn't call it then, for version 2, which was, I think, almost over 20 years ago now. Anyway, I grew up making electronic dance music in the kind of late 80s, early 90s, with hardware. So hardware is where I find myself is my natural go-to place. I kind of secretly, I somewhat, not struggle, but I think software is incredibly amazing. But the thing about software is that it gives you every opportunity available. You're met with so many options. And I guess the reason why, some of these vintage machines, why their appeal was because they were limiting, and limitation breeds creativity. So I still have the original drum machines that I had from 25 years ago or so, and I still continue to make in this way. Now, something about the way I make, which is really, really important. I do not care, and this is hard for people to understand, especially those who work in a computer environment. I actually have no interest in saving anything. So I'll let that sit with you for a second. What does he mean by that? So let me clarify. Computers are fantastic. Computers can save, recall patches, sequences, arrangements, and I think that's an incredible, versatile tool. The computers have won. We can now, a man can now, make something perfectly musical, tonal, timbral, whatever it is. But it is us who makes music, not machines, and not software either. What I'm getting at is that I am, you could say, well, I am an improviser, and I improvise with this array. So most people, not most, I should say most people, that's a bad judgment. I should say many people use software and use software, and they make music, and they want to know, what does this sound like? What does that sound like? And it's also got to do with the economics of how they make and sell music hardware and software. They sell it based on what does it sound like. Well, sound is only one part of how we make and compose music and perform music. The other part is how it moves through time. Hence, Ableton is a sequencer first. So I like to be in the moment. Sure, there are certain machines here that I have to program drum patterns because I can't record them live. But I don't think that, pattern 1 on this machine goes with pattern 1 here. Okay, so I'm not worried about that whatsoever. I'm just kind of mixing a whole lot of elements and seeing where the gold lies. And especially when you talk about, modular synths, which doesn't have, a lot of modules don't have a memory, and you lose the patch once you power down. And I really like that because, I embrace the happy accidents that happen, in my set and in the way I make. So, and the other thing about the kind of vintage here as well is that it's really immediate because of its limitation. It's really, really simple and immediate. And the one thing in Ableton that kind of, embraces that kind of design and that thinking is the Impulse instrument, or the Impulse plugin, which is a really simple drum machine. I remember, when I taught at Melbourne Uni, it didn't matter how advanced certain students had, in Ableton skill, in Ableton Live skills, or what have you. Impulse is a great, fantastic tool. If you can't make something from, 8 drum sounds and, those limited controls, well, then having the world of samples and the world of, software plugins and, isn't going to help. So it actually, by being limited, actually helps you focus as well. Now, you're going to say, well, hang on a sec, David, you've got, 48 machines in front of you. True, but I don't use them all at the same time because the other thing is that, music technology companies sell these as individual instruments, and I don't see them as instruments. I see them as one module in my studio instrument. So that's kind of my, when I talk academically, that's my kind of research, which is I look at the studio as my performance instrument. And yeah, the computer and DAW is also part of that as well. So it's only one component. I hope that, is there any questions on that? Because I know that I've kind of delivered quite a lot there. Any questions there? I'll listen out for them. No? Okay. Don't be shy. Okay, so what have I got sort of here? So I'm...
So I think it just as I'm a musician, I guess, primarily before getting into Ableton. And so for me, playing is where I've come from, not recording and producing. Right. And so on the fly improvisation that's sort of where I've come from as well.
Yep.
And so trying to capture the essence of that into Ableton, it's a different world really. I'm really just only discovering Ableton and coming from where you play and you just on the fly to then bring it into the door and trying to just do it. It's a different method.
Yeah, totally. And see, the thing is that I'm not a traditionally trained musician, so I can't play any traditional instrument. I'm completely pitch deaf, so I have no idea what the, what are the, there's black and white things. What are they called? Piano or that's right, keyboard or piano. I've got no idea. That's literally just an interface for me to enter an event or a sound. You can actually see that a lot of the devices I have, or except for that one there, doesn't really have any form of traditional keyboard because it doesn't matter to me. A lot of what I do is kind of based on kind of random, being in the moment, and then finding that through just kind of listening in the actual moment itself. So that helps you understand my kind of my approach to this. So the way I perform is actually the way I actually make music as well. So if I don't record this whilst I'm making it, it's gone. It's very hard. Well, actually, I can't replicate it because I don't respect replication in electronic dance music. I think a lot of boring shit in electronic dance music is the same fucking samples, the same thing over and over again. And, I think we all have our individual approach, and, we all listen to things differently. We all have our life experiences have led us to kind of listen differently. Won't get into that, but so I've got a massive festival. I'm not sure whether you know Mysteryland. It's a Dutch brand. It's quite massive. So I've been asked to do their festival at the end of this month, which is streaming globally. So it's free. So check it out. And I'm streaming from my studio. And so I've set up this array of, devices or modules. Not very different to how I normally make anyway, but again, it looks like a lot, but I have to restrict myself as well. It's almost like the approach to Ableton, like the gentleman was just saying beforehand. It's like, how do you be in the moment with a DAW? Well, again, I'd suggest, impulse and one good MIDI MIDI controller. Get your hand off the mouse. The mouse is not a creative tool. The mouse is good for clicking on websites. It's not a musical tool. I know that we're all kind of, we're drawn to it very quickly, but it's a horrible creative tool. Even a small, I think Korg make these nano little controllers. They're fantastic. They're like, $70, less than $100. Just, hook that up to, some CC data and just play with some knobs, be in the moment, let everything kind of just loop in Ableton. That's what it's great for. Let it kind of loop and record that output and see where the gold comes, that would be kind of my advice. So back to here. So what have I got here? Would you like to know what's going on here? And everyone says yes, or thumbs up, or smiley emoji, or whatever. Can you see everything? I'm quite a portly gentleman, if I say so myself. So what's going on here? So one of the very important devices in a studio, and one of the important modules, I should say, is a mixer. Okay, so the mixer is also is part of the instrument. It's not a rudimentary device that just mixes audio. When it comes to electronic dance music, this bringing things in and out and filtering and EQing them is highly important. So don't neglect the power of automation again in Ableton, because this is my automation, literally, along with all the different access to volumes of and synth parameters, what you might have. So let's have a look at what's going on here. So I've got a half in the image here. You can see there's an 808 drum machine here. Yes, the 808 drum machine and the 909. Now remember, look, I didn't buy these last year. These were bought 30 years ago when they were peanuts. Nowadays, of course, they are quite revered, but there's fantastic, and David's going to stand up and we're going to, Ableton has some great sounds, and there's like, there's little emulators now and clones or what have you, which are all fantastic. And if someone asks me again whether it sounds like the original, I'm going to hurt myself because it doesn't matter, right? They all sound like a 909. You got a 909 clone, it sounds like a 909 clone, right? Unless you're doing a science experiment, it sounds like a 909. I never met a clone I didn't like, Does that make sense? I haven't heard anyone, have I? Good. You still with me? Don't change the channel just yet. Okay, got the 808 drum machine, which is the kind of hip hop, electro. 909 became the house and techno drum machine. Then I've got some Electron boxes here. I've got the Rhythm, which is a drum machine from Electron. I'm actually only using maybe 2 or 3 sounds. I'm not really using this very much. And this is the Analog 4 is a 4-voice analog synth. I'm actually not using it. I'm actually just using it as a kind of MIDI router and converter for some stuff here. So that's actually not in use. It's on, but it's only acting as a MIDI through box. Over here is an Octatrack. So the Octatrack is a sampler, and you're just saying to yourself, hang on, David, didn't you just say that you don't like to save anything? Well, I don't, because the Octatrack is actually live sampling certain things that I'm sending to it. But I don't save it at all. So I don't save the samples. I don't, sit here. I actually don't have time to craft samples or anything like that. I actually just, the audio comes in. I set this up in such a way where I can trigger and remanipulate the sounds over and over and over again and being in the moment. Everyone following me so far? Good. How's the shirt look? Anyway, I've borrowed this this mixer. It's a DJ mixer. I normally don't use DJ mixers, but a friend has lent me this Model 1 Play Differently, which is a really expensive DJ mixer, and I'm actually going to use it for this festival because it kind of mimics the old desks, high-end sound. I don't mind it. It's also great because it only has 6 channels. So again, it helps me limit, my sound sources as well.
Sorry, Dave, what did you say that was? What type of mixer?
It's a DJ mixer.
Yep.
It's Model 1 Play Differently. It's a rather expensive DJ mixer.
Right.
Right. And unlike regular mixers where it has like kind of EQ, you have your high, mid, and lows. This has a high pass and low pass filter, so it works like the old, older high-end desks. Yes, it was designed in conjunction with Richie Horton and Allen and Heath. Yes. P.S. mic isn't working. My mic's not working. You can't hear me very well. Okay, cool. Now, as we take just a break from our regular programming, I have to tell you that this is the reason why I make electronic dance music. It's called the Roland TB303. It's a monophonic synth. There are hundreds of software emulations of this, and there's now almost hundreds of clones of this. I own 13 of these, or original and clones. And this is the reason I make electronic dance music, because this was thrown away 25 years ago. It was a busker's tool, and it became the sound of acid and techno. So literally, my studio began with just these 2 boxes. That was it, and it's grown ever since. So the 303 is an important sound, an important sequencer in my studio. Now, I'm using this Avalon here, which is a 303, you would say clone, but it actually is a 303 that's not reverse engineered. It actually has the same parts as this. Again, I think I bought this for 40 or 50 bucks, and these days they're astronomically priced. And this one still has the sticker from the kid who had it at school or something. Should I go on? Still with me? Haven't gone to sleep yet? Good. You want to hear it? Yeah, we'll hear it in a sec. So the 303 sounds like this. Where are we? So that's acid. That's the sound of acid. And my whole career was based on that and this. And that's it. Nothing else. That's literally how I started my career and how I will end my career, with a 909 kick drum and a 303. Everything else is kind of just window dressing, pretty much. And I don't mean that's, I don't mean to be a smart ass when I say that. I mean it literally. You know, electronic dance music is really just, you know, centered on a kind of kick drum as the pulse and, you know, the driver of the dance floor. And everything else is just kind of window dressing, and it's all. What have we got? We've got a homeware store. We've got a woman's boutique. We've got, you know, a coffee store, and they're all the different shops based on what they sell in the window. Right? That makes sense, doesn't it? So what else we got going around here? I'll have to turn around so you can see. Can you still see me? I'm still here. There's a couple of effects units here, so at any time I can blend them in and out. Now, what a lot of people do with DAW is they kind of set a effect and they leave it on. It's like, I mean, how fucking boring is that? You know, this is what you can do. Now, I just gave you a dose. I hope you can hear that. I just gave you a dose which was like, you know, 3 seconds, and already I can change that sound by using the mixers again as a instrument and not just a kind of set and forget. Everything is very dynamic. So what else have we got going on? Can I be in the way? Get out the way, in the way. I have, now we get to the modular synth, and I won't go too much into it because it gets rather, we go down a rabbit hole here. But this is a rack of, you know, 2 percussive synths and these are the Moogs here. And this is an array of modular synths. I'm actually not using this really. It's more just kind of routing audio. But this Moog rack is kind of important because this is what I'm doing with the Octatrack. So the sounds from this is going into here and being resampled. Let me show you. Let's see if we can get something. Can we hear that sound? Okay. Now, what I've got the Octatrack set up is to be a dynamic, you know, sampler, is that I actually hit it when I wanted to record, and then I move the crossfader from the live version to the sampled version. So when you see me move across, you'll hear that it's sampling that, but it's rearranging the triggers based. You'll see there's some, I'm not sure whether you can see it, but there's kind of triggers here, and I'll move them around every now and again so you can actually hear how different it is. Right, you ready for this? Good, thank you. That's the live version. Now it's recorded it. Now I'm going to change the sound on the synth, and I'm going to record it whilst we're hearing the recording. So there'll be a little pause. That's still all samples, and now here's the original. Live. Sample version. I welcome your questions. Hit me up. I know you want to ask me something.
Oh,
Sorry?
How does this differ from your live rig?
This is my live rig.
Fair enough, mate.
So my live rig is the same rig as my studio rig. It is literally a version of my studio all the time.
Enough. So you just pack all this up and then take it on the road with you?
Yeah, well, all I really do is I just take a smaller version.
Yeah.
So, you know, when I actually have to do live gigs in front of human beings, you know, I have to work out, well, what machines am I going to take with me? What kind of gig is it? Where is it? How big is it as well? So, you know, when I'm in my, you know, actual, you know, larger studio, I have the, you know, you can't see all the shit that's behind me, but I've got, you know, pretty much like a museum of synths, right? Because I'm an old person. And so, you know, one of the choices when I start to compose, my choice is, okay, what machines am I going to pair with what? And it always starts with either a 909 or an 808 drum machine with a 303, and then it builds on that.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes, mate. Thanks very much.
No problem.
you
So sometimes I can do gigs with just only 2 machines, which I have done. There was recently there was a gig at Revolver. A friend of mine was doing something at Revolver, and he said, "Oh, can you come and play live?" He said, "I've got no room for you. Can you just bring, you know, 2 or 3 boxes?" And I did. And I said, "Look, you know, I'll play half an hour, 45 minutes." End up playing an hour and a half. You know, so again, that limitation bred something, you know, special and great. You know.
All right. Thanks, man.
yeah.
What would be the centerpiece? Is that the question, Dusty? The centerpiece, and I don't mean to be, I don't mean to sound like an idiot, but the centerpiece is me. It's how I'm reacting to this gear. You know, I could say that the 303 and the 909 is the kind of center of it all, but there are times when, you know, I won't use those machines either, to kind of contradict myself. So I guess what I'm trying to say to, you know, many people, don't, no matter where you are in your music trajectory, is that it is you that's the most important, you know, person or device in your studio. You know, not to take the shine away from Ableton or anything like that, but it's your approach to Ableton. You know, you only need to find an approach that works for you. You don't need to know the software inside out. That is kind of, you know, comes from our stupid, you know, high school, you know, way of thinking that you have to be perfect with everything. You know, you do not. All you need to do is just know the actual devices, software or plugins that get you the result. I guarantee you, and I'm telling you this, I'm coming this from an informed position as a kind of academic and someone who teaches composition, right? When students find out the music that they like and how it's made, they realize actually it was really quite simple. It wasn't complex. The complexity comes from our way of thinking, you know. Now, technique is just one small part of making music, you know. And when it comes to popular music, I can tell you that, you know, you don't always have the best performer or, you know, musician or what have you. It's the sum of all its parts. And when it comes to kind of electronic music and electronic dance music, you know, we have this great we have this great sphere of software, and we think we have to master this and we have to master that, and then they market these new products. And it's like, I have to have another plugin, I have to have another plugin. It's like, When I taught Ableton, we did not use any third-party plugin whatsoever. If you can't make with what Ableton gives you is as a standard set, not the suite, whatever it's called, I can't remember, then buying another plugin ain't going to help you. I know that's the way they market it, but a third-party plugin ain't going to make you a better producer, musician, or performer.
Yeah. So just to say that I've been using Ableton for like 7 years, and only now have I gotten plugins, like for the first time ever. And like I've made albums and I made all this music just without it, just because I use a lot of samples, and use a lot of the factories. Like I love the effects in Ableton. I think they're really powerful, and I kind of have go-to effects and stuff. But I wanted to ask, have you produced for other people?
I have.
Yeah, like how do you collaborate with other artists? Like do you like, say if someone were to have like a track, would you kind of give some sort of, add your parts to, like flavors to it? Like is that how you would normally collaborate?
Well, being a producer, there's different types of producers. There's the kind of producer who's perhaps creative or technical or more engineering. So it kind of depends on the project. But a lot of what I do as an academic is, I teach people about their thinking around music. So to me, it doesn't matter if you can play guitar well or whether you know Ableton inside out or not. What matters is what, we as individuals are trying to say.
Yeah.
Because the tools will always change. Methods will always change. We'll always discover a new way of doing something, because that's our kind of journey. If you're passionate about this, you want to learn. I've got a new plugin. How does that work? What results can I get? But when you talk about people who are professional in this arena, I use the analogy of a commercial chef. A commercial chef goes to work, jumps in that kitchen. That person is cooking immediately. They're not thinking about, oh, maybe I'll use this spice or maybe I'll use this. No. They know exactly what they have to cook. Right? Now, as hobbyists are fine, because hobbyists, we have hobbyists have the pleasure of time, because they're not, they don't have to finish anything. But, when I teach composition, it's the line in the sand between hobbyists and professionals. Hobbyists are always working on something. Professionals, it's finished. It's out there, There's always something you can do to a piece of music, regardless of genre. But you've got to know that it's done and let it be judged,
Yeah.
That's passion. I mean, there's there's nothing wrong with being a hobbyist, we're all hobbyists at one point as well, and, I can sit here in the studio and just, play around with sounds over and over and over again and not record anything. And I'll come back, the next day and I realize, oh, fuck, I don't have it anymore. It's gone, and I kick myself. So, I should actually listen to what I preached,
Where do you teach?
I teach at Monash, but Monash Uni at the School of Music, and I taught at the Conservatorium for 3 years, and I taught at Melbourne Polytechnic for about 4.5 years as well.
Cool. No, because it's something that I've been considering getting into, the composition side, because I've been producing for like this amount of years, and I feel like I'm kind of hitting walls now, and I want it to kind of get more musical, if that makes sense. Like, would you think that would be a good path?
Look, I'm an advocate for education.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and I think
I don't think there's any harm in education whatsoever.
No, of course.
The more we know, the better we know about ourselves and the world around us and our context, especially as artists. I mean, I think, if this is just my opinion, music is communication. It's just another language, and it doesn't matter what genre or what gear or software or tools you use. It doesn't matter. What matters is, what are you trying to say? Where is your artistic voice in the music that you're making? So a lot of the kind of consultancy that I do, a lot of kind of mentorship that I do with composers, whether they're my peers or they're young composers, whatever it may be. It's like, where are you in this? You know, I mean, if you just want to sound like, you know, I don't know, producer X or Y, great. You know, go onto YouTube and you'll find out how to do that really quick.
I don't listen. It's interesting. I don't really listen to a lot of music these days. Like I don't know. I just don't. I listen to so many other things, but I just make because I'm making so much. But I feel like that's good because then I don't get too influenced by other.
That's great. It's
artists.
great.
Yeah. And then people are like, well, where did you get that? And so I'm like, I don't know. It's just.
There's no right or wrong way to make it. You know, it's, you know, the kind of, you know, now I'm going to assert my opinion here about this. It's like, I think music education is completely, you know, traditional musical making is completely and utterly antiquated. It was based on a couple of, you know, old German guys 200-300 years ago. I mean, really, are people still trying to play, you know, the perfect fucking note on, you know, a string instrument or what have you? Good on them, you know, that's fantastic. But that is a career path, you know, I think that has a lot, you know, I question that quite a bit. And, you know, that kind of music education is telling us that you must adhere to these rules. Well, guess what? You know, things like Ableton, you don't need those rules whatsoever. You don't even need to know what C and G or whatever those things are, or what a keyboard is. All you need to have is that kind of desire and passion to manipulate sounds and see what comes of it, you know? I don't know, you know, call me an idiot. I'm happy, you know, I'm open to criticism. I understand that, but that's kind of my background. My background, I came from a punk background, and it was just like, you know, if you want it, you can do it. That's it, you know, that's all that matters. And, you know, I couldn't play guitar. I tried, you know, I was forced to play guitar as a child, and I was so bad at it, I didn't even practice, you know, I can't even, you know, I don't remember any of it. But then when drum machines came and all this technology, it's like,
yeah,
oh, I really like this, you know, I've actually, it's resonating with me.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I started doing this professionally, I thought, really, is this really a thing? Because, you know, I'd been so programmed that no, well, it wasn't musical enough. You know what I mean? It's like, and then I realized, what the fuck is musical? You know, what the fuck does that mean? You know, do people like it? Is it resonating with an audience? Fantastic, I've won. You know, not everyone's gonna love what you do.
Yeah, and that's something that I think was really a turning point. Like not everyone loves what you do, but then there's other people that will love it, and
totally.
You know,
find your tribe, and as long as you're enjoying what you're doing as well. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
The two things. Don't ever try and please everyone. You're never going to win that game.
No.
Just find your people and play for them. And David, Ben's got some questions that he's written down too. There's a couple in there. Have you had any?
Sorry, I can't see the
That's
chat.
all right. I'll read them out to you. Any analog gear nightmares when playing out live?
No. The only, you know, like, only one gig that was a problem for me was because of a drunken, you know, idiot who just kind of kicked my power out. You know what I mean? So when the power's gone, you're kind of done. But otherwise, if something doesn't work, the audience don't know it's not working because they don't know what they're about to hear. And because every show I do is completely unique, a lot of analog synths that I bring, I have to program just before I start. So I remember that I did, like, you know, what was it? A couple of years ago, I did a Picnic Electronic at my music bowl, kind of a big thing, you know, on Sundays in the summertime. And I remember I had the Octatrack, and the Octatrack is quite an important machine for me. And the samples, it wasn't resampling at all, completely, right? Now, the audience never knew that. And I'm not sitting there going, oh, shit, oh, fuck, shit. It's like, no, you're going to do the show. So, you know, so there's always a way around it. And actually, you know, I embrace and I breed happy accidents, especially with the modular stuff. That's what the modular stuff does. You know, I set up happy accidents. So it's like, oh, okay, wasn't expecting that. now I'm going to riff on that. Does that answer your question, Ben? I hope so.
We have another one in there too, which was, what are some methods you use to bring your students beyond the usual pop or EDM mindset and towards their more creative self-expression? So I think you answered that quite a bit in terms of just what's important to you. Did you have anything else to add to it?
It's just, just understand what you like and why you like it. It doesn't have to be on academic terms. Can you just describe what you're hearing from an artist that you really like, and you give it a go? Because even if you had, I can tell you, even if I gave you all this gear, even actually you came into my studio and I said, okay, there you go, here's all the gear, go and make something, you're not going to make the same music as me, again, because the important person or the important component is the person, who's interfacing with this gear. So, that's why I'm a big believer that understand yourself and you'll know how to extend, or how to develop that self-expression and to, actually make it bloom. And then hopefully that will resonate with somebody. If you do it long enough, it's going to resonate with someone. Does the gear design pre-dance music feel different to the... I'm reading the question from Nix. Is it Nix?
I'll just say it's probably easier to express. So the gear that you've got that was designed pre-dance music, like the 808 and the 909 and the 303, does that, when you're using that live and you're performing or when you're recording, whatever, does it, is it different to use that gear expressively than stuff that's been designed with like dance music in mind? Maybe interfacing, or I'm not sure.
Okay, so you touch on an interesting topic, which is these machines weren't made for electronic dance music. They were picked up by bedroom producers because it was just cheap and it was affordable and accessible. No one bought this gear because of the way it sounded. That came after the fact. So now, you've got, and I mean, I love gear, right? It doesn't matter, right? But I'm saying the electron stuff, the early electron stuff, especially you can't see, but I've got the old machine drum and mono machine, really kind of, they riffed on Roland's sequencer, the step sequencer, which is just so simple and so rudimentary, but that's what gives it its appeal. And I think what I'm trying to get at, I think it's the actual economy of making these machines. Manufacturers have to offer so many different options and so many different, functionality, but you don't have to use every function. It's like software, it could be a plugin or DAW. It's like there's no, I remember years and years ago when I started making music, computers couldn't record audio. They were just sequences. That's all they were. They were MIDI sequences. And then when computers could start to record audio, it's like, oh my God, wow, this is amazing. I mean, my first sampler could record, 8 seconds of sound, but you'll be amazed at how much you can get into 8 seconds of, percussive shots and things like that. So I think it speaks to kind of the economy of how they make machines. And I think there's some great functions in these machines, but again, it's actually being able to just filter out all the stuff that is noise. It's like buying a car. Do you need a cup holder? I don't know. Maybe if you're a traveling salesperson, that cup holder could be important. But if you're perhaps I don't know, a young person going to and fro work, and you have breakfast at home, then you don't need a cup holder. So again, it's highly subjective, but I do love what new gear brings and what functionality they will, and how they'll integrate with everything else as well. So depends on the gear. That was a long-winded answer. I'm so sorry.
Dave, I wanted to ask you, you brought out a brand new album earlier this year.
Yes.
And given that you don't like to, you're not keeping your ideas, you're playing in the moment, you're improvising. How do you approach recording an album and what you decide to release and shaping it into an album form?
Okay, good question. So that's actually what I should have said at the start. So I released an album called Post Acid on Carl Cox's label earlier this year. And when the label approached me, I just had some recordings of kind of what I do in the studio. I said, this is what I've got, right? I said, two things. I can't make DJ music. So if you want arranged DJ music, I can't do it. Yes, I do make electronic dance music, but it's improvised. So what you're hearing now, the kind of what demo, whatever I was doing at the time, is not what I'm going to make for the album. I said, what we'll do is I can either do it here. I went to Carl Cox's studio and I just kind of lifted a whole lot of this stuff, some of the stuff, brought some gear, set it all up. I had my co-producer and the engineer, who's also the label manager. I said, hit record. And for 2 days straight, I just jammed boxes and they just recorded. So we ended up recording 11 hours of music, and we just kind of lifted tracks out of those recordings. You know, they were stemmed out and there was, you know, some mixing and some minor editing, but there was, the integrity of the performance was still kept. There was no kind of, you know, rearranging drum sounds or anything like that. So, yeah. So again, you know, like on the album, it's a moment in time. And so, you know, if people want me to go and perform the album, it's like, I can't do it. I'm not interested. And it's impossible because there's modules that I used in my modular synth that I don't even have anymore, you know? And even if I did have them, I can't patch them the same way. It was that moment in time. So the album is actually a really good example of that's what it is. And I think that's what's exciting about performing live as opposed to DJing. DJing is all about replication. DJing is being able to, you know, program and replay those tracks over and over again. Now, for many DJs in many contexts, that's very important. Not to take anything away from them, but you know, when I play next to DJs, when DJs are playing, then I play. It's like, well, what you actually are going to see me making the music in front of you, and it's going to be completely unique. So if you weren't there, you're not going to hear it. You're not going to, you know, experience it.
That's interesting because, like, when I play live, like, people don't understand what I do. They think that I'm a DJ, and I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, because I use an Ableton Push,
yeah,
and I like, you know, do stuff live, and it's like it was really hard for my manager back because I was living in Europe, and she was just like, sometimes I just don't know how to sell you because you're not a band, you're not a DJ. And I'm like, I know, so somewhere in the middle, because yeah, you're kind of creating that music in a live setting.
I like people who call me a DJ, you know, and you know, the funny thing was that I was on radio as an actual DJ.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
You know, I used to DJ in certain contexts, but it wasn't Honey Smack. But when I started this, I never, ever, ever wanted to DJ.
No. I've never DJ. I don't even know how to use a mixer. So
good. Yeah, good.
I don't know.
You know, because you know the way I explain to people as well. You know how you see a band perform music at a venue. Yeah, well, that's what I'm doing. You know, I'm not playing a CD. I'm actually playing and composing some of the music live in front of you.
It's just really hard for people to get that, I think, when they see the gear. Like they see my laptop and then they see that and then they're like, well.
Do you know?
And I'm like, oh, my laptop's my instrument.
I've been doing this for so long that I've heard that I was 2 Japanese guys. I was a guy in Sydney. You know, it's like, you know what? Doesn't matter what people think. It's almost like you can't make music on specification. It's, you know, you just do what you do. And, you know, if people love it and it resonates with people, fantastic. If it doesn't and they don't understand it, doesn't matter, you know.
Yeah, of course.
You don't ever hear, you know, large artists online explaining what they did and why they did it. Oh, no, sorry. Let me explain what I was trying to do here. You know, you don't see, you know, big commercial artists do that because that's an area for hobbyists. And it's pretty kind of, you know, pretty strange to do that. You know, when we see music that we love and when we experience art for that matter, we just go, oh, it's amazing, you know. We weren't privileged to a conversation with the artist. We didn't know who the producer was. We don't know what gear they were using. It just like it all kind of communicated in that little kind of, you know, in that little moment, in that ball, in that kind of, as that artifact, and just go like, oh, that's amazing. And that's the kind of the holy grail for anyone, for all artists, is being able to make something that people just go, well, that's amazing, without having to explain it.
One of the things I find that you get sort of trapped, you get a loop happening, and you sort of get like 8 bars or something sounds pretty good. How do you break out of that 8 bars to go further and develop a whole song? Or I guess you got a lot of expression and a lot of things to do, but
watch this. Try this, right? See this? That's a knob.
Yep.
Turn it. Don't be scared. Put an EQ on that channel and just, hook that EQ up or that filter up to a MIDI controller and move it. It's fine. You're gonna, you have to do something. You have to do something physically.
Yeah.
Because kind of watching that go over and over and over again, you think like, oh, what can I do? Well, load up that track or that channel with some effects that you like, with some EQ. I think EQ and filters are, basically everything is perceived as a change in volume anyway. So, get your MIDI controller if you have one, or dare I say your mouse, and just move some knobs and keep recording it over and over again, because we actually don't know where the results are going to come from. I don't care even if you're a well-trained musician and you can play guitar really well, and if I play this kind of riff, everyone's going to love it. Maybe so, but in electronic music, you've got so much at your disposal. It's just literally, I know it sounds a bit kind of dumb, but you just got to move a knob, literally, or a slider for that matter.
Yeah. Thanks.
A lot of what young composers do is they just keep adding and adding and adding and adding and adding stuff. And me as a producer, I just go, throw all that away. Oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? It's like there's a term with music production. You have to learn how to kill your children. You're not throwing it away. You're just using that idea for another project or another track. After using so much hardware, are there common traits of good interface design? Good interface design is being able to grab a knob, and it's kind of one knob per function, per action. That's why vintage synths are so good, because when I move a knob, I know that relates to this particular function, or that's what makes it really great. Do you ever work with vocalists?
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say, so do you tend to steer clear of stuff that where you have to click through menus and stuff as you're performing?
Yeah, but the Octa track is full of menus, but sometimes you just can't avoid it. I don't like menus, and so you do your best. I do my best to avoid stuff like that. For me, I need immediacy. This is like, look at the 909, the 808. I have my snare drum. I have a level, I've got tone, I've got stackiness, and I know I'll move those and it'll affect the sound, I mean, it's okay if you work in a very deliberate and crafted way, as most people do. In front of a DAW, you've got that, you've got the time. But when I'm in the moment, when I'm performing, I don't have that time. I don't have the luxury of time. When I'm in my studio, just faffing about and seeing what goes, no problem. Have I ever worked with vocalists? What's a vocalist? What's a vocalist? Oh, vocalists are human beings that speak in a funny way. I'm being facetious. Have I worked with vocalists? I have worked. I've had projects that are kind of vocal based, but I'm not a fan of vocal music.
Well, have you used like hardware to manipulate live vocals before? Like, is that something that's possible? Or is it more just MIDI?
It is. but I think, you know, I mean, this is just personal. I have such a problem with vocals and lyrics. They're too literal for me. Do you know what I mean? It's like those talent shows, you know, geared towards 12-year-olds or 80-year-olds. Do you know what I mean? I think, you know, I think electronic music is so rich in timbre and different qualities that.
Yeah, I've been working with a lot of like vocal samples and like recorded bird sounds and stuff, and trying to mix that into electronic music. Yeah.
Anything goes. You know, literally, if you walk away with anything from, you know, this conversation, it's just do anything. Don't let anything stop you, because you don't know where it's going to work for you, or actually what's going to work for an audience. But more so, first of all, yourself. You know, so the more you find your approach and that unique approach, then you'll create something kind of new and interesting. Unless, of course, you want to sound like someone else, which I kind of understand, you know. But vocals, not really. I mean, I have, if I've got something here, I can. So like that, when I become kind of textural, then I really like that stuff. Yes.
So I think I asked before, but how do you actually use Ableton in your setup? Are you going to go into that, or?
Well, funny enough, I don't use Ableton myself. No? Ableton is
it's more of a production tool, or?
It's a tape recorder.
Yeah, yeah.
It's set up in such a way so if
so that's how you set it up. So you set it up to just record the session. Yeah.
I do use it to perhaps, you know, master and
tweak things a little bit.
Yeah, and sometimes if I've got kind of, you know, loops that I want to use and put in the off the track, I do, but I don't tend to do that anymore.
We don't need to. You have so much stuff. They'll just complicate things, maybe.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I think Impulse, like I said at the start, I think Impulse is a great tool. It's a really simple tool that everyone can use really, really easily. You know, just grab your phone, walk around the house and make some farting noises or move some doors and sample that. You know, that'll say something more about you as an artist than grabbing, you know, sample pack from awesome DJ XXX again.
Nah.
And it's like, you know.
I got duped the other day. I bought a pack and it was just like, what was I thinking? Like, this is.
I know. But the advertising is fantastic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's it. They sucked me in. They totally sucked me in. And I was like, damn it. I did get, no, to be fair, I did get one amazing sample from there that I totally like manipulated into a song. So sometimes that was worth it. But the rest of it was just shit. I was like,
think about it, right? Right now, we have access to every sound imaginable on the planet, right? We all do. Every one of us, whether you're a professional, hobbyist, we've got access to it. 10, 15 years ago, that wasn't the case. You know, people didn't have access to all these sound sources, you know. So, you know, now if everyone can buy that sample pack, well, then there's more than one person using that sample.
Yeah, but that's why field recordings are so good, because you're like, no one's got that sound, right?
Exactly. But then there's nothing wrong with sample packs so long as you're, you know, what I'm suggesting, as long as you're manipulating it, you're actually, again, putting your hand on it, you know, having your touch. It's the same thing like buying, you know, that kind of Legos, you know, pasta sauce in a jar. It's horrible, right? But if you're starving, then maybe that's the quickest thing to, you know, to get something on the plate. I mean, I wouldn't dare use that whatsoever. But then to make a great pasta, you only need some great tomatoes, some basil, and some olive oil, and you're done. Do you know what I mean? You don't need a lot. You go to great restaurants and you have this great meal, you realise, oh, this salad's amazing. What's in it? Well, there's tomato, basil, and olive oil in it. Ah, you know what I mean? And you realise it's actually quite simple. It's not about, you know, what knife they use or whether they're using a $500 knife and what oven they've got. The meal is presented in such a way that you just go, this tastes amazing, you know, and to sound like music, you know, it doesn't matter what you kind of used and, you know, what the tools were so much. What matters is what happens at the end, you know, and it doesn't have to be, you know, filled with every sound and every technique known to man. That's called music students who need to do that, you know. And then in their kind of second year, they start to realize, oh, you know. So you got to get into that.
Given you like a minimalist setup and approach, but you are surrounded by a plethora of gear. I just before we wrap up, I want to know, is there anything that's hot on your list that you don't own that you're scouting for, and why?
There's always something. There's that Russian Pulsar 23 by Soma Labs. Is this great kind of drum synthesizer, and it actually has got like contacts where you actually touch it and it helps make the sound as well. It's just, you know, I mean, I'm Russian background, you know, Russians are just fucking weird, you know what I mean? They just like, you know, just can think completely differently. I'm not trying to be separatist or anything like that. I'm just saying, you know, it's just like, it just goes outside of thinking of everything that we have at the moment, you know. And every drum sound has its own little sequencer as well. So it's not adhering to this kind of, you know, grid of these, you know, that kind of traditional way of making electronic dance music. So.
All right. Well, we might, you've given us a wealth of information, David. Thank you so much for taking time out to talk to everyone. And I would encourage everybody to seek out Dave's latest album and buy it, because as you know, we're all as you know, as musicians, but there's not a lot of income coming in. So that's a good way to support each other. And Dave's album is an absolute freaking cracker. So jump on it. So that's under the Honey Smack
moniker.
Yeah, moniker. Yeah, so thank you.
Music, there's a place called, what's it called? The internet. So, it's available everywhere. I mean, you know, don't worry, I'm not about to make money if you buy it or steal it.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure having just a peek into the way that your brain works, the way that you see music, and the way that you use various hardware to do it. Obviously today wasn't a huge focus on Ableton, but I thought I really think it's important to, as Dave mentioned, that getting your hands on things and getting out of the screen and getting away from the mouse is such a powerful way of creating.
Absolutely.
And also I find once you've got your head around, you've really like played around with a piece of hardware and you go back to the software, you have such a good understanding, such a much deeper understanding of how each software instrument works and the parameters which you can change that and alter it because you physically got in and done it with your hands and your ears. And so, yeah, it's you can see that in action, and hopefully that's given everybody, regardless of what genres you're working across, an idea of how to think about things and integrate different pieces of equipment and ways of approaching software. And, you know, and maybe next time you're getting sucked in by the sales funnel on a new piece of a new plugin or something, maybe just step away from the buy button and go back to what you've got. And one thing that, definitely that came out for me from Dave's talk is let it keep recording. stop that the impulse that we always have of just like, oh, I screwed up, I'm going to stop, I'm going to go back, I'm going to play it again, and I'm going to get it right. Just keep recording, because sometimes you go into a territory that you never would have, and it's the best thing you've ever played. And when you listen back, you're just like, holy shit, I don't know how I got there, or how I made that mistake, and how I got out of that mistake into that place, and it just changes everything. So yeah.
Happy accidents are the best generator, the best seed for a new idea.
Yeah, awesome.
Stop thinking in terms of, time and everything. You've got as much time as you want, There was time when computers could only record, a very small amount. Nowadays, it's like, well, you can just keep recording, So, hands on, keep recording. Don't worry about all those obstacles that has been programmed into your head since a young child, There are no limitations.